Imagine a girl that's always loved to be standing on stages all of her life. As a little kid in kindergarten, always in the front row. Later, as what you call a female role model, nominated by Forbes magazine, speaking publicly almost every other week. Ever since she was little, she had loved the feeling of pleasing the audience, and the clapping of hands has always been her greatest reward. It was only a few people that were able to look behind the curtain of her big brown eyes. It was only a few people that would see the fear, the insecurity, the shame, not just of people around her, but of herself as well. She was almost perfect in covering her fragility, almost. It was late last year when people walked into her life who uncovered her inner self within an instant. Can you imagine how that must have felt? She realized that no facade, no curtain, no smiling face was ever perfect enough to shield away her insecurities long term. She realized that this was her opportunity once and forever to let go of her fears and to walk into a new life. A moment, an encounter, scary at first, but it sparked her curiosity on a new view on her insecurities, a new view on reality. Reality in its term is defined as the state of things as they actually exist. We, however, often see reality as something which is given. In many cases, reality is biased by our past experiences and perceived differently to what it actually is. So let's go back to the example of the brown-eyed girl. She often felt like a victim of her circumstances. She often felt like she could fail. She desperately needed a partner to compensate her lackings. She always had a sentence in her head about failure, and she felt a lot more fragile than she actually was. She frequently needed gestures of other people to prove to her she was liked, loved. Despite her professional image in public, patterns of the past had started to affect, to bias her view on reality. All of us are programmed by unspoken rules. Rules and patterns we build up through our lives, through school, childhood, and our immediate surroundings. A phase of our lives where we're often not conscious when actually starting to adapt those rules. A phase where we didn't question them. Here's an example what I mean by that.
A scientist placed 4 monkeys in a room with a stepladder upon which there was a bunch of bananas. Whenever a monkey went to climb the ladder, the other monkeys in the room were sprayed with cold water. After a while, each time a monkey went for the bananas, the others would attack it to prevent it from doing so. The monkeys learnt to never climb the ladder. But then, one of the monkeys was removed, and a new monkey wearing a raincoat was introduced. Naturally, this monkey went for the bananas, and it was customarily attacked and prevented from doing so by the others. This new monkey learnt not to climb the ladder. So when another monkey was substituted in and made for the bananas, all the others attacked it, including the one in the raincoat, despite the fact that it had never been sprayed with cold water. A third monkey was substituted in, and then a fourth final monkey. And still, whenever a monkey tried to climb the ladder, the others would prevent it from doing so, even though none of them had ever been sprayed with the cold water. When asked why this was, one monkey said, "That's just the way it is."
What you just saw is an experiment about learned fear conditioning. It explains the automated thoughts and emotions we often base our actions on. It also indicates as to what extent our reality is biased by past unconscious experiences. Experiences we can often recall, but we didn't know about the patterns they created when we grow older. So, how do we now reach the paradigm change in the heads of the monkeys? How do we do it to ourselves? How do we see reality as it actually is? Remember the brown-eyed girl? What she did is she started to detach herself from the situation. She started to observe the automated thoughts running through her head, and she started to question whether beating the other monkey still made sense in the now, and it often didn't. She also asked herself where all the insecurities originated from, and she found a number of situations where her head was just talking to her about this is the way it is. She discovered that in her school life and upbringing, she had been taught that gestures of other people is what she needed to feel secure. School had taught her that being alone meant being unhappy. She had never questioned that. She had never learned that security is a feeling produced within yourself, independent of others. It was inexperience that led her to the conclusion that the opinion of others mattered more than her own. Slowly but steadily, she started to create her own rules, independent of others. Rules that suited her reality, her being, her truth. She decided that there was no reason for shame anymore. There was no one from whom she could fail, and that she was not as fragile as she believed she was. She decided that happiness is a decision independent of others. So, how do we create our own rules? How do we define those is often not easy. Those rules and patterns in our heads have often been running for years and are thus hard to recognize. But reality will reveal you the results. Here's a possible way to go about this paradigm change. The first step is to observe the automated thoughts running through your head. For the little brown-eyed girl, she knew it was automated when in her head a sentence formed about she could fail. She also knew that when emotions looped around anger or fear for too long, when thoughts felt like energy suckers twirling in her head, that those weren't healthy thoughts. All she needed for this observation to happen was moments of silence, moments of no consumption. For some of us, this might be the morning meditation. For others, the 10 minutes we spent on the toilet. It doesn't matter where this silence, where we embrace this silence, where this observation happens. The second step is to identify the triggers which cause a chain reaction within yourselves, whether it's fear or anger. If you don't have an answer to why these thoughts are running through your head, and if they just feel like this is the way it is, you know by now that these are just automatisms unconsciously programmed in the past. If you're able to identify the starting point of those emotions, identify the starting point when these automatisms happen, you're one step ahead of replacing them. Lastly, it is your free choice on how to react to those triggers. One thing you should keep in mind, those emotions and those rules and patterns in your head once made perfect sense in your lives. They simply don't anymore. So treat your past me the same way you would treat others, with generosity, respect, and love. The little brown-eyed girl, she took it even a step further. She would start to laugh upon the automatisms occurring in her head, and she would start to smile upon the time when those made perfect sense. In many cases, reality is biased by past experiences. Why do we feel sad about a breakup? Or why do we suffer when our company goes bankrupt? Or is it maybe in our best interest that those things happen? Is it the perfect reality? Can we look behind the normal, the socially anticipated reaction towards certain triggers? Are we able to break through what school, childhood, and our immediate surrounding have taught us? You probably know by now that the little brown-eyed girl, who's now a grown-up woman, more or less, is standing right in front of you. I'm telling you about an encounter last year, and I'm telling you about a different view on reality. Last year, I shaped this new view for myself, and it has made a change in my life. Reality for me is now something that I define, something that reflects me perfectly. Reality became a mirror for myself, and I'm living through those situations with things occurring in my life. Ever since I see reality as something that suits me perfectly at all times, ever since I broke through those automated rules and patterns, reality became this mirror. It is okay to be like you are, and it's possible to be different if you want to. Whenever I broke through those automated rules and patterns in my life, I called those moments my Panda moments. The panda being the image of seeing the world through the honest eyes of the little brown-eyed girl. In my vocabulary, I replaced the word coincidence by this is my way of how it is. With my company Selfie, I help others live their lives. With my new view on reality, I help myself to shape my future and not just to run on automated patterns. Are you ready to no longer beat the other monkeys? A paradigm is nothing else but a perfect solution at a given point in time. It is okay to run on those old thought patterns and rules, but sometimes it's time to challenge those, to observe, identify, and love. Thank you very much.